Welcome to Swai Files. I am Swai. If you've spent time delving into unsolved mysteries on YouTube over the past few years, chances are you've heard about the missing 411 phenomenon. This is a collection of mysterious disappearance cases discovered by former police detective David Paulides and widely popularized by content creators like Mr. Ballin. Missing 411 isn't just a series of ordinary disappearances. It involves cases with a strange set of common characteristics that are difficult to explain. So, what exactly is missing 411? It's a combination of factors that seem illogical at first glance. People disappearing in remote wilderness areas, common traits among victims such as ethnicity, gender, intelligence, and disabilities, and the mysterious natural features and timings of the disappearances. Not everyone goes missing, but if you happen to fall into the group with these traits, be careful. You could be the next person to vanish without a trace. If you've been following our channel for a while, you're likely familiar with the fact that we've discussed these cases extensively. What makes these cases particularly terrifying are the eerie, shared characteristics, from the locations where victims disappear, the condition of their bodies, to the mysterious separations between victims and their companions. In some cases, victims even share strange commonalities in identity, such as the surprisingly large number of people of German descent involved in these disappearances. Although no concrete evidence is presented in the books or documentaries on Missing 411, there is an implication that someone or something may be intentionally abducting these people. Does that give you chills? In today's video, we will explore cases where, even after thorough investigations, we still don't have solid answers about what really happened. And maybe, just maybe, David Paulides was right. In this video, we will examine cases where the mysterious disappearances seem to involve some extraordinary factors. But before you think we're diving into supernatural conspiracy theories about mythical entities like Wendigos or skinwalkers, or hypotheses about spatial rifts and teleportation portals around the world, hold on. The answer might surprise you. It's not about those things. Instead, we'll focus on disappearances that truly have no reasonable explanation. Cases where we have to admit these are genuine unsolved mysteries. This video will present a lot of new information, additional details we've missed in previous parts, to give you the most comprehensive and accurate story. Most importantly, we'll dive deeper into the actual factors connecting the 5 cases we've chosen for this video. Among the many mysterious disappearances of missing 411 that we've studied, these 5 stand out as cases we simply cannot explain, and we felt they warranted further discussion. To do this effectively, we will need to thoroughly explain the details of each case to you. These cases often share some terrifying common traits, from the victim's identity to the bizarre natural elements involved. Typically, the victims are men with either exceptionally high or very low intelligence, and notably, many of them are of German descent. In some cases, the victims had disabilities that were considered contributing factors, such as in the cases of Tom Messick, Maurice Demetz, and Bobby Bison. This doesn't mean that only young white men go missing, but these shared traits create an odd profile that few can explain. Besides the victims' identities, the natural features of the disappearance sites play a crucial role, from the elevation, weather conditions, to the presence of freshwater sources, berry bushes, and granite boulder fields. Particularly, caves are considered a key factor in many cases. You may have seen the famous map where unresolved disappearances overlap with cave systems across the United States. However, the issue with that map is that you're rarely more than 10 miles away from a cave in the US, so it doesn't always help explain the mystery. Nevertheless, these factors still leave us questioning cases like Dennis Martin, Stacey Arris, and Garrett Bardsley, typical examples of disappearances under such strange conditions. The mysterious separations, where the victim vanishes suddenly, often in the afternoon, close to family or friends, yet no one notices anything. This creates a haunting sense for anyone investigating. Even when bodies are found, their conditions often raise more questions than provide answers. The level of decomposition, injury patterns, and even the victim's clothing frequently don't match the circumstances of their disappearance, as seen in the cases of Barcher and Todd Geib. And then there are other strange features. Bodies found in previously searched locations, deaths with no clear cause, or search dogs being unable to track the scent. Survivors often show symptoms of memory loss. In this video, we will thoroughly analyze each factor and investigate these inexplicable cases further. Cases that even experts struggle to understand. Now, get ready to uncover the truth behind the most mysterious disappearances we have ever encountered. When studying the missing 411 phenomenon, a series of strange disappearances start to reveal themselves, with seemingly insignificant commonalities. Yet, when pieced together, they open a door to a world of unsolvable mysteries. David Paulides, who has spent years investigating these disappearances, didn't just see isolated incidents. He uncovered a system of shared characteristics and signs that, if you look closely, will send chills down your spine. In this part, we'll dive deep into the common traits found in missing 411 cases, from the gender and background of the victims to the specific natural elements surrounding their disappearances. But this isn't just a simple list of factors. It's a sequence of mysterious details, questions without answers that pull readers into this enigmatic story. The first thing that caught the attention of Paulides and his team was the gender of the victims. In most of the cases he investigated, the victims were predominantly male. This, at first glance, might not seem surprising, as men often engage in risky outdoor activities such as hiking, camping, or hunting. However, upon deeper investigation, Paulides discovered something unexpected. Not only were the victims mostly male, but a large proportion of them were of German or Northern European descent. This small yet haunting detail raises many questions. Why are people of German or Northern European origin more likely to disappear than others? Could there be some genetic factor that makes them more susceptible to becoming targets of these mysterious disappearances? Some even speculate about the possibility of a genetic curse, something rooted in the past, a dark force we cannot see. A prime example is the case of Tom Messick, a man of German descent who vanished while hunting in the woods. Or Garrett Bardsley, a 12-year-old boy of Northern European descent who disappeared while camping with his father just a few hundred meters away. These disappearances aren't just simple cases of people going missing. They evoke the sense of something invisible, silently controlling the fate of these men. In addition to ethnicity, the intelligence of the victims is another notable factor. In many cases, Paulides noticed that the victims typically fell into two extreme categories. Either they were highly intelligent or had low intelligence or physical disabilities. This raises more questions than answers. Highly intelligent individuals usually have the capability to handle situations quickly and efficiently. So it's puzzling when they disappear without a trace. Could they have seen something beyond our perception? Or were they drawn into a force that rendered them unable to control themselves? For instance, Jim McGrogan, an experienced and knowledgeable doctor in survival techniques, still vanished without a trace while on a skiing trip in Colorado. Conversely, those with lower intelligence or disabilities seem to become easier targets. They often get lost or can't find their way out of dangerous areas. Yet, what baffles researchers is that even when these individuals are prone to getting lost, why don't they leave any signs of their disappearance? And if they were in danger, why are their bodies often found in strange, remote locations no one would think to look? A notable example is the disappearance of Bobby Bison, a man with intellectual disabilities who vanished while walking in the forest near his home. Despite search teams combing the area for weeks, no trace was found until his body appeared in a location that had been searched before. When discussing disappearances related to the missing 411 phenomenon, the role of the natural environment cannot be overlooked. The places where the victims disappear aren't just ordinary forests or mountain ranges, but they always possess some eerie natural element, such as high hills, lakes, large boulders, or berry bushes. These features not only create a mysterious backdrop, but seem to act as accomplices, hiding every trace of the victims. Many disappearances happen in areas of high elevation, where the weather and terrain are so difficult that few could reach these locations on their own. Mountains, rocky fields, and lakes aren't just scenery. They seem to serve as the guardians of nature's secrets, places where once a person steps in, they never return. One prime example is the disappearance of Jim McGrogan, a doctor highly skilled in dealing with harsh nature. Yet when his body was found, it was in an unexpected place, a high cliff, miles away from his intended route. How could someone with all his knowledge and survival experience end up there without leaving any trace? Could some force have been guiding and leading him there? Additionally, water is another frequently occurring element in these disappearances. Lakes, streams, and rivers are often focal points in these cases. Victims frequently disappear near water sources, and when their bodies are found, they are often discovered near rock formations or in cold, isolated bodies of water. This raises the question, does water play some role in concealing or pulling victims into another realm? Finally, one of the strangest aspects of missing 411 cases is the vanishing without a trace. In many cases, victims are only steps away from their friends or family, but suddenly disappear without anyone hearing a cry for help, seeing footprints, or finding any clues. What could cause a person to vanish like that, right from where they just stood? Could they have fallen into some crack between space and time? Or is there some force intervening, pulling them into another dimension that we have yet to discover? Nature, humanity, and mystery all seem to play a role in the missing 411 phenomenon. Each disappearance is not just an isolated event, but part of a much larger mystery. These common factors only deepen the enigma, making this phenomenon harder to understand and more challenging than anything we've ever known. We will continue exploring cases of disappearances that seem to defy any logical explanation, with details that become more perplexing the deeper we dig. First, let's talk about the cases where no bodies were ever found. We'll start with two notable examples: Garrett Bardsley and Stacey Harris. Garrett Bardsley was a 12-year-old boy who disappeared in August 2004 during a camping trip with his family at Cuberant Lake in the Uinta Mountains, Utah. Garrett and his father were fishing and were only about 150 meters from their tent when he headed back to change his shoes. However, Garrett never returned. Strangely, the terrain where he disappeared was not particularly rugged, easily recognizable, and had clear paths. Yet after weeks of searching by helicopter, search dogs, and hundreds of volunteers, no trace of Garrett was ever found. The area also lacks large predators capable of harming humans. Garrett's disappearance left many baffled, and the big question remains: how could a young boy vanish entirely in such an area? Next is the case of Stacey Harris, a 14-year-old girl who went missing in July 1981 while on a horseback riding trip in Yosemite National Park. After stopping for a break, Stacey separated from the group to go to a nearby stream to wash her face. That was the last time she was seen. The stream was only about 20 to 30 meters from the rest area, but when an older man followed her to ensure she was all right, Stacey had vanished without a trace. Like Garrett, despite an extensive search effort and relatively uncomplicated terrain, Stacey was never found. What happened to her? Who or what could have intervened in such a short time? Disappearances like Garrett's and Stacy's raise a series of questions about what might have occurred. These areas aren't just remote, they also possess strange natural features like granite formations, boulder fields, and even caves. All common elements in the missing 411 files. Let's move on to cases where bodies were found, but the condition of the remains raised more confusion than clarity. One of the most striking examples is the case of Jim McGrogan. In March 2014, Jim McGrogan, an emergency room doctor, disappeared during a backcountry skiing trip with friends in Vail, Colorado. Jim was an outdoor enthusiast, fully equipped with GPS, a cell phone, warm clothing, skiing gear, and a large backpack filled with food and water. Yet, in a single moment, when Jim decided to go ahead of the group for a rest, he was never seen again. The strange part is that Jim had all the necessary tools to survive in snowy mountain conditions, but he disappeared without leaving a trace. After days of searching, his body was eventually found in a completely unexpected and hard-to-reach area, miles away from his original path. Even more confusing was the report indicating that Jim seemed aware he was lost but did not use his GPS, didn't make any additional calls for help, and his body was discovered in a bizarre state. He wasn't wearing shoes, his jacket was still in his backpack, and there was no indication that he had tried to activate his avalanche beacon. The question here is, why would someone as experienced as Jim not utilize his survival tools? Could there be a mysterious reason behind his irrational actions? Another case is that of Bart Schleyer, a grizzly bear expert who disappeared in September 2004 during a research trip in Alaska. Bart was a veteran biologist working for the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service and a member of the interagency grizzly bear study team. On his last research trip, Bart set up camp in a remote area to observe wildlife. But when the rescue team reached his camp after he had failed to communicate for several days, they found that Bart had vanished without a trace. All his gear remained intact in the tent, and there were no signs of struggle or animal attack. Several months later, Bart's body was found in a distant, unexplained location. The strange thing is that Bart, being highly experienced in wilderness survival, still went missing and died under inexplicable conditions. Could something have happened that we still do not understand? Lastly, among the cases we'll discuss today, perhaps the most bizarre is the death of Fred Hardesty and David Horsay in Nahanni River Valley. This area is famously known as the Headless Valley due to numerous disappearances and the discovery of headless bodies. Fred and David are among the last people to go missing and die in this region, and the condition of their remains only adds to the mystery surrounding this haunting place. As we examine these cases, what remains puzzling is the similarity in the natural conditions, victim behavior, and the state of the bodies when found. What is truly happening here? Could there be a connection between all of these disappearances? Let's continue our journey into the unsolved mysteries, and who knows, maybe we'll stumble upon a clue that no one else has ever considered. We will delve deeper into the cases of Jim McGrogan, Garrett Bardsley, and the eerie disappearances in the Nahanni River Valley. Each story will unravel more mysterious details, challenging our understanding of reality and keeping readers hooked. Jim McGrogan was no stranger to outdoor enthusiasts. As a renowned doctor with exceptional survival skills, Jim frequently organized expeditions to explore wild terrains that many wouldn't dare to venture into. He had skied through treacherous mountain ranges, climbed icy peaks, and faced some of the harshest natural conditions. With all that experience, Jim embodied the figure of someone capable of handling any situation, no matter how dangerous. But what led him to mysteriously disappear in the heart of nature during a trip no one thought would turn into a nightmare? In March 2014, Jim and a group of friends decided to embark on a challenging skiing trip in Vail, Colorado. an area famous for its towering mountains and breathtaking natural beauty, but also notoriously dangerous. Vale is a place that adventurous souls long to explore, yet it has also witnessed strange disappearances that no one can fully explain. That day, everything began like any other trip. Jim and his friends started early, fully prepared with gear and provisions for their multi-day journey through the snowy wilderness. Notably, Jim was always meticulous when planning such trips. He brought along a GPS, a cell phone, and a full survival kit, which included thermal clothing, medical supplies, and even some emergency food. On the snow-covered trails of Vale, Jim and his friends seemed to have no worries. They skied through vast snowy fields and ice-covered mountain ranges. When they reached a midday rest point, Jim decided to go ahead of the group to scout for the next stop. His friends watched as he gradually disappeared into the distance, but none of them thought it would be the last time they saw him. However, after Jim left, something strange happened. He never came back. When his friends realized Jim had been gone for too long without any sign of returning, they began to worry. They tried calling him, but there was no response. His GPS wasn't sending any signals either. This immediately raised concerns about Jim's safety, as with the modern equipment he carried, Jim could have easily sent out a distress signal if any emergency occurred. But everything remained silent. It was as if Jim had vanished completely from the world. Rescue teams were immediately mobilized. Hundreds of volunteers and specialists joined the search, combing through every possible area Jim might have passed. They used advanced tools like helicopters, search dogs, and tracking devices to try and find any sign of him. However, there were no footprints, no clues, and no traces of Jim. For someone as experienced as Jim to vanish without leaving any signs was truly bizarre. The search continued in desperation for Jim's friends and family, but the results remained a total mystery. Until one day, after weeks of fruitless searching, Jim's body was unexpectedly found in a location no one had anticipated. A high, dangerous cliff, miles away from the original route. The scene of Jim's discovery sent chills through everyone. How could Jim, a man fully equipped with survival gear and experience, have ended up in such a perilous location without anyone knowing? Not only that, but Jim's body was found in a strange condition. He wasn't wearing his thick thermal jacket. A seemingly illogical decision for someone accustomed to surviving in harsh weather conditions. In such freezing temperatures, removing his jacket would have led to a quick death, and Jim certainly knew that. So why did he make that choice? What compelled him to do so in his final moments? Moreover, when the body was examined, experts found no severe injuries, just a few minor bruises. There were no signs of struggle or attack. This only deepened the mystery surrounding his death. The strange circumstances of Jim McGrogan's case only added to the enigma of the missing 411 phenomenon. How could a man with Jim's survival experience stray so far off course without using any of his equipment to call for help? Why did his GPS and phone remain silent throughout? What truly happened to Jim in his final hours? Could there have been some invisible force guiding him to that location? A force we cannot see, but that can control every action Jim took? Or did Jim face something so terrifying that he couldn't call for help or defend himself? Theories have been proposed, from the possibility that Jim may have experienced a psychological breakdown due to extreme weather conditions to the idea that he may have been caught in some supernatural phenomenon we don't yet understand. But no matter how many theories are suggested, Jim McGrogan's case remains one of the most mysterious in the missing 411 phenomenon. And to this day, no one can provide a reasonable explanation for his strange disappearance. The questions remain, and the answers may have disappeared with Jim, lost amidst the icy expanse of Vail, Colorado. A place where space and time seem not to follow the usual rules. The story of Garrett Bardsley's disappearance not only brought immense pain to his family, but also left the entire community in shock, as it was filled with strange details that would send chills down anyone's spine. Garrett, a 12-year-old boy, was full of energy and a love for nature. Like many other young boys, he eagerly participated in outdoor activities with his father and friends. But no one could have imagined that what started as a joyful camping trip would turn into a never-ending nightmare. In August 2004, Garrett and his father joined a Boy Scout camping trip at Uinta National Park, a wilderness area of breathtaking beauty in Utah. The towering mountains, dense forests, and flowing streams made it a paradise for nature lovers. But that same nature seemed to hide a dark secret as Garrett disappeared without leaving any trace. That day began like any other camping day. Garrett, his father, and the Boy Scout troop spent the morning fishing near the campsite. The soft sunlight reflected off the stream, creating a peaceful scene. Garrett, always cheerful and lively, played around with his father while fishing. But then, something seemingly small happened. Garrett's shoes got wet when he accidentally stepped into the water. Not wanting to continue with wet shoes, Garrett decided to return to the campsite to change. The distance from the fishing spot to the campsite was only a few hundred meters, a path Garrett had walked multiple times and was familiar with. His father, still standing by the stream, watched as his son walked toward the camp. He had no reason to worry, as Garrett would be back in just a few minutes with dry shoes. But those minutes passed and Garrett never returned. At first, his father felt a slight unease, thinking Garrett might have stopped to rest or encountered some small issue. However, when the boy didn't return in the expected time, he became worried and followed the path to the camp to find his son. What he discovered was more terrifying than his initial fears. Garrett had completely vanished. Garrett was no longer there. The campsite was only a few hundred meters away. The path he had taken was clear and recognizable, and there were no dangerous or complex terrains. How could a boy with camping experience through the Boy Scouts get lost in such a short distance? His father began searching the area, calling out Garrett's name, hoping the boy would hear him and return. But the silence that answered him was an ominous sign. Garrett did not respond. There were no cries for help, no signs that he had gotten lost or injured. The boy had vanished as if he had never been there. As soon as Garrett's disappearance was reported, a massive search operation was launched. Rescue teams, along with hundreds of volunteers, including local hunters and experts, combed every corner of Uinta National Park. Helicopters, search dogs, and the most advanced equipment were used in the search. They scoured the dense forests, rocky hills, streams, and high cliffs, but no trace of Garrett was ever found. It was as if everything had been mysteriously wiped clean. One detail that made the search even more puzzling was that no footprints were found, even though Garrett's path should have been visible on the soft ground after the rain. The search teams went over the area multiple times, but everything led to dead ends. How could a boy walking such a short distance disappear without leaving any trace? Those involved in the search were confronted with a sense of helplessness, as every nook and cranny, from caves to rocky crevices, failed to provide any clue. There were no torn clothes, no personal belongings of Garrett left behind. This led many to begin considering more far-fetched theories, such as the possibility that the boy had been abducted by some invisible force. The search continued for weeks, but to no avail. No one knew where Garrett had gone, and no clue pointed to what had happened. Theories began to surface, and each one carried its own eerie undertones. Could Garrett have been abducted by a stranger right in the middle of nature? But if that were the case, why were there no signs of a struggle? Or had the boy encountered a rare natural phenomenon, such as falling into a hidden sinkhole or being pulled into an underground crevice? Even so, The rescue teams had searched thoroughly, and if any of these scenarios had occurred, they would surely have found signs. Another theory, even more terrifying, is that Garrett was pulled into something beyond human understanding. Some supernatural force or an invisible entity that we cannot yet explain. In many of the missing 411 cases, victims have disappeared under similar circumstances, in the middle of nature, without leaving any trace. Could it be that nature has become a mysterious enemy, or is there something even more dreadful at play? For Garrett's parents and family, his disappearance is not just a source of immense pain but also an unanswered question. They don't know where their son has gone, nor do they have any clues to continue the search. Each passing day only adds to their unbearable sorrow, as they must face the fact that Garrett disappeared without anyone knowing why. Those involved in the search, including experienced hunters and experts, also couldn't make sense of the case. They had searched for hundreds of hours, but all they found was the eerie silence of nature. It seemed as though some force was silently erasing all traces, something that we cannot see but can perfectly conceal everything. The disappearance of Garrett Bardsley is one of the most frightening and perplexing mysteries in the missing 411 phenomenon. It forces us to ask the question, what is really happening in these wilderness areas and mountains? Are we dealing with something that science has yet to explain, or is there an invisible force quietly controlling everything? Whatever the answer may be, Garrett's disappearance remains a scar in the minds of his family and those who witnessed it, a mystery that may never be solved. The chilling stories of Nahanni River Valley don't stop with the disappearances of explorers or gold miners. The legends and strange phenomena of this land have been passed down through generations, each story adding to the haunting picture of a place where time and reality no longer follow normal rules. The indigenous people living around the valley have passed down tales for centuries about the presence of a mysterious tribe that lived there long ago. They were fierce warriors, protecting the valley as their sacred territory. According to local lore, this tribe vanished mysteriously, leaving no trace behind, but their spirits still linger in the forests and mountains. Those who trespass into their territory face terrifying punishment, which is why many people have been found decapitated in this area. The mysterious disappearance of Stacy Arris is one of the most haunting and inexplicable cases in Yosemite National Park. In July 1981, Stacy, a 14-year-old full of energy and a passion for exploring nature, went on a horseback riding trip with her family and friends. The majestic landscape of Yosemite, with its towering rock formations and crystal-clear streams, made the trip a memorable experience. But no one could have predicted that amidst the peaceful nature, a terrifying disappearance would occur. After a long horseback ride, Stacy's group stopped to rest in a remote and desolate area. The atmosphere was eerily quiet, with no sound but the gentle trickling of water and the breeze rustling through the trees. Stacy, curious and full of youthful energy, decided to leave the group briefly to go to a small stream about 20 to 30 meters away to wash her face. The short distance shouldn't have been a cause for concern. She would only need a few minutes and would be back shortly. An older man in the group saw Stacy walking toward the stream. He decided to follow behind to ensure that she wouldn't run into any trouble. But in just a few brief minutes, before he could catch up to her, Stacy had vanished entirely. The stream she was heading to was within sight of the rest of the group, and there was nothing unusual about it. The terrain was quite simple, not a difficult area to walk through, and there were no steep cliffs or hidden dangers. But it seemed as though Stacy had disappeared into thin air. The older man frantically searched the area, calling out her name in desperation, but there was no response. There were no signs that Stacy had ever approached the stream, no footprints, no strange sounds. At this point, Panic began to spread through the group. Everyone was stunned by this unexplained disappearance. In such an incredibly short amount of time, in an open area with nothing to obstruct the view, the 14-year-old girl had vanished as if she had never been there. A large-scale search was immediately launched, involving hundreds of rescue workers, search dogs, and even helicopters. The area where Stacy disappeared was not particularly complex, and with ideal weather conditions, everyone believed that finding her was just a matter of time. But even after searching every square meter, from small bushes to rocky crevices, not a single clue was found. Stacy had disappeared without a trace. The search continued for weeks, but with each passing day, the horror and mystery surrounding the disappearance grew. Rescue workers found no signs that Stacy might have been attacked by wildlife, and there were no traces of her in the search area. The search dogs, highly trained to follow human scent, were also baffled by the strange disappearance. There was no scent, no trail left behind. What made this case so incomprehensible and shocking was the complete absence of any clues. Unlike other missing person cases, where there might be signs of someone getting lost, injured, or attacked, Stacy seemed to have vanished from reality. Every effort to find her ended in vain, and the question of what happened to Stacy only made the case more haunting. As time passed, bizarre theories began to emerge. Some suggested that Stacy might have inadvertently stepped into another dimension, a parallel universe inaccessible to humans. Others speculated that some supernatural force had taken her away without anyone noticing. There were even theories that an invisible entity lurking in the park might have taken advantage of people's isolation and vulnerability to abduct the unlucky. But no matter the theory, the truth has never been uncovered. Stacy Harris, a bright young girl full of promise, vanished amidst the beautiful wilderness of Yosemite without leaving a trace or explanation. Those who survived the trip that day still remember her smile and her bright eyes before she left. But now all that remains is a memory of a mystery that will forever remain unsolved. Could it be that something beyond human comprehension exists in Yosemite, or was it simply a terrifying coincidence? Stacy's disappearance continues to be a major unsolved mystery in the history of the park, leaving questions that no one has yet been able to answer. The deaths of Fred Hardesty and David Horsay in Nahanni River Valley are among the most haunting stories in the series of mysterious cases related to the area famously known as the Headless Valley. Deep within Canada's Northwest Territories, this breathtakingly beautiful wilderness is also shrouded in a dense darkness of horrific events that no one has been able to explain. For more than a century, numerous disappearances and strange deaths have occurred here, with many bodies found headless, instilling fear and curiosity not only among adventurers but also professional investigators. Fred Hardesty and David Horsay were no exception. Both middle-aged men experienced with the wilderness had a deep passion for exploring uncharted lands. In June 2005, they decided to embark on a hunting and fishing trip to the Nahanni River Valley. With its majestic and remote landscape, this valley was an ideal destination for those who loved wild nature and sought to challenge themselves in harsh environments. Fred and David planned to stay at a small cabin along the banks of the North Nahanni River, about 77 miles from Fort Simpson. The cabin was fully stocked with food, water, and weapons for defense, a necessity in a region known for the presence of large predators like bears and wolves. With such thorough preparation, the two men felt no concern and looked forward to a peaceful retreat in the wilderness. The last time Fred and David were seen was on June 12, 2005. They were still in the cabin, with nothing unusual happening, and everything seemed to be going according to plan. However, on June 16th, when the cabin owner came to check on them, he found the cabin completely empty. Fred and David had disappeared without any sign that they had left voluntarily or been forced out. The cabin door was intact. There were no signs of struggle or forced entry, and all their personal belongings and supplies remained untouched. Only the two men were gone. The Royal Canadian Mounted Police, RCMP, were immediately notified and launched a large-scale search. They scoured the entire area around the cabin, from the riverbanks to the nearby forest, but all efforts were fruitless. The terrain wasn't particularly difficult or treacherous. There were no towering cliffs or deep, dangerous holes, yet it seemed as if Fred and David had been swallowed by the darkness of the valley. The first major mystery was the complete lack of any evidence regarding where Fred and David had gone or what had happened to them. With their extensive experience living and working in the wild, they would have certainly known how to protect themselves and stay safe. What could have driven them to abandon the safety of the fully equipped cabin, to venture into the uncertainty and danger of the wilderness without anyone knowing? The search continued until June 23rd, but still, no trace of Fred or David was found. The silence and mystery surrounding their disappearance only heightened the fear for those left behind. Police even began to suggest that Fred and David might have gotten lost in the forest. But this theory failed to convince many, as both men were experienced and fully equipped to protect themselves and survive. The first breakthrough came unexpectedly on June 27th, when David Horsay's body was found. The scene left the searchers horrified. David's arms bore strange burn marks, as if he had come into contact with an intense heat source, yet there was no sign of a fire or anything that could have caused such wounds. Furthermore, David's body was discovered in a place that had already been thoroughly searched before. How could a body suddenly appear in an area that had previously shown nothing? The mysterious burns on David's body remain an unsolved puzzle. There was no nearby fire, no indication that he had attempted to start one to keep warm. So what caused these injuries? And why did his body mysteriously appear in an area that had already been searched? The search continued, and a few days later, Fred Hardesty's body was found floating in the North Nahanni River, about 20 kilometers from the cabin. Fred's cause of death was determined to be drowning, but the question remained: why had Fred thrown himself into the river? What had driven him to leave the safety of the cabin and flee to such a distant place? The condition of both men's bodies only added to the mystery surrounding their deaths. David Horsay, with the strange burns on his arms, showed no signs of an attack or struggle. Fred Hardesty, who drowned in the river, had no signs indicating he had accidentally fallen into the water. The injuries, circumstances, and their disappearance seemed to defy any logical explanation. Nahanni River Valley has long been infamous as the Headless Valley, where numerous strange disappearances have occurred over the past century. Many headless bodies have been found in the area, leading to speculation about supernatural forces or invisible threats that humanity has yet to understand. The deaths of Fred and David only added to the mystery, as their deaths were not only inexplicable but filled with eerie and suspicious details. Did Fred and David encounter a mysterious force, a being that humans cannot see or comprehend? Or did they unknowingly trigger an ancient curse, similar to others who had met a tragic fate in the Headless Valley? The truth behind the deaths of Fred Hardesty and David Horsay remains an unsolved mystery. What really happened during their final moments in this enigmatic valley? Were they abducted or attacked by an invisible force? Or was it simply a natural accident that no one could foresee? To this day, Nahanni River Valley continues to haunt the imagination of adventurers and investigators alike, leaving behind more questions than answers. Next is the strange case of Aaron Hedges, an experienced hunter who disappeared in September 2014 in the Crazy Mountains, Montana. Aaron, along with his friends, was on a multi-day hunting trip. During the journey between campsites, Aaron became separated from the group due to some damaged equipment. He decided to return to an area where the group had previously stored some spare supplies. From that point on, no one saw Aaron again. What was unusual was that, despite Aaron having all the necessary survival skills, the search, which lasted for several weeks, yielded no results. Sometime later, a few of Aaron's personal belongings, including shoes, a backpack, and a gun, were found on a trail far from his original path. This raised a significant question. How did Aaron leave behind such essential items, especially his shoes, while in a cold, wild area? Then, in the spring of 2016, Aaron's body was found in an area more than 11 miles from where he went missing. What made the case even stranger was that Aaron had disappeared for an extended period in harsh weather conditions, yet his body had not decayed as one would expect. This led many to suspect that something inexplicable had interfered with Aaron's death. Another mysterious disappearance was that of Dennis Martin, a 6-year-old boy who went missing in June 1969 in Great Smoky Mountains National Park. Dennis's family and several other families had joined a picnic in the area. While playing hide-and-seek with children of his age, Dennis disappeared without anyone noticing anything. Although the search began immediately and thousands of people, including the FBI, the U.S. Secret Service, and rescue teams, participated, no trace of Dennis was ever found. What made the case even more mysterious was that some witnesses reported seeing a large, strange man carrying something resembling a child on his back near the area where Dennis disappeared. However, there was no evidence to confirm this, and Dennis's disappearance remains one of the most bizarre cases in U.S. National Park history. We start with the disappearance of Jared Atadero, a 3-year-old boy who went missing in October 1999 while on an outing with a group of friends at Roosevelt National Park, Colorado. What made this disappearance particularly horrifying was how suddenly it happened and the clues found later. Jared was said to have run ahead of the group during a hike and disappeared from sight in an instant. Immediately, a large-scale search was organized, with hundreds of people, helicopters, and search dogs. However, no trace of Jared was found for several weeks. One of the most shocking details of this case came nearly 2 years later, when hikers accidentally discovered a piece of fabric and Jared's small shoes on a high cliff that was impossible to access by foot. This raised significant questions. How could a 3-year-old boy have climbed such a steep cliff without assistance? And why were his clothes not worn or damaged, even though they had been exposed to the harsh natural environment for 2 years? Adding to the mystery, part of Jared's remains was found nearby, but there were no signs of animal activity, no indication of an attack or struggle. These details only deepened the mystery, leading many to believe that something unexplainable might have been at play. One of the most shocking international cases in the Missing 411 files is the disappearance of 2 Dutch women, Chris Kramers and Lisanne Froon, during their trip to Panama in April 2014. The 2 young women had planned to explore the wilderness in the Boquete region but never returned. The disappearance of Chris and Lisanne shocked the world due to the strange and unexplainable details. Initially, only some of their belongings were found, including a backpack with personal items like passports, phones, and glasses. What was particularly strange was that these items showed no signs of damage from the weather, even though they were found deep in the jungle months later. Later, investigators discovered that the women's phones had been turned on multiple times in the days following their disappearance, but no successful distress calls were made due to the lack of signal. This raised questions about whether the 2 women had been forced into some unknown situation. The mystery didn't stop there. When scattered remains of Chris and Lisanne were found months after their disappearance, Lisanne's bones were almost intact, while Chris's bones were white and clean, as if they had undergone some artificial decomposition process. These contradictory clues caused great confusion in determining the cause of death for the two women. Did they encounter a ruthless force in the Panamanian jungle, or did something mysterious prevent them from returning? Returning to the 1940s, the disappearance of Paula Weldon, an 18-year-old college student in the Bennington Triangle, Vermont, is one of the most mysterious cases in the region's history. Paula decided to take a short hike on the Long Trail in December 1946. She was seen by many witnesses on the trail, but as night fell, Paula completely vanished. Although a search was immediately organized, including the involvement of the Vermont State Police, no trace of Paula was ever found. Furthermore, there were no signs of a struggle, no evidence that Paula had been attacked by wildlife, and everything seemed eerily quiet and untouched. What had happened to this young woman? Had she accidentally stepped into another dimension, as some supernatural theories suggest? The Bennington Triangle, where Paula disappeared, had long been famous for other strange disappearances in the area, adding to the mystery surrounding this land. Not only Paula, but many others had disappeared under similar conditions in the region, with no one able to explain why. The first gold prospectors to enter the Nahanni Valley heard stories about a tribe called the Naha. According to legend, the Naha were a powerful warrior tribe renowned for their strength and brutality in tribal wars. They were said to have lived in the high mountains, a place so remote that outsiders could rarely reach. However, at some mysterious point in history, the Naha tribe disappeared without a trace. The stories of the Naha are not just legends, but also served as warnings for outsiders daring to enter this sacred land. According to the elders of the native tribes, the spirits of the Naha still guard the Nahanni Valley, allowing no one to intrude or attempt to take what they protect. The decapitated heads of gold prospectors, explorers, and tourists were not mere accidents. They were acts of punishment. Some believe that the Naha tribe may have uncovered a secret of this land, perhaps a hidden treasure or a valuable natural resource they swore to protect with their lives. And with each person seeking wealth, they are struck down by the invisible wrath of these ancient warriors. But to this day, no one knows whether the Naha were just a myth, or if they truly existed and guarded a much larger secret. Along with stories of the Naha tribe, the Nahanni Valley is also believed to be a place where nature rebels. Many scientists have tried to explain the disappearances and strange deaths by pointing to the unique geological phenomena of the area. Nahanni is thought to be located on a geological fault line where strong magnetic currents are at play. One theory suggests that the strong magnetic fields could affect the behavior of those entering the valley, causing them to become disoriented, experience hallucinations, or even suffer from temporary insanity. This might explain why many explorers disappeared or ventured into dangerous areas without reason. However, this theory still does not answer the biggest question: why were so many bodies found without their heads? Some believe that the strong magnetic fields of the area could disrupt electronic devices, similar to other mysterious locations around the world, such as the Bermuda Triangle. It is possible that for this reason, people like Franklin Rufus couldn't use compasses or navigation devices to escape the valley. But even with the most rational geological theories, the mystery of the missing heads remains unsolved. Even in modern times, Nahanni Valley continues to attract brave adventurers. Some return with stories of stunning landscapes and grand natural challenges, but others never come back. Disappearances continue, although they are not always as tragic as the tales from the early 20th century. In 1962, the disappearance of an expedition group drew significant attention. The group, consisting of 3 men, all seasoned hunters, decided to challenge themselves in the Nahanni Valley in search of gold. After losing contact with their families for weeks, a massive search was launched. The bodies of 2 of the 3 men were found in a remote area, frozen. However, as with previous cases, their heads were missing. Strangely, there were no signs they had been attacked or struggled with others. The 3rd member of the group was never found, and the story of their deaths only added to the fear that something invisible is haunting this region. Perhaps the most chilling aspect of the Nahanni Valley is not just the missing heads, but the timeless mystery that surrounds it. The stories and legends of this area span generations, but to this day, no one truly knows what is happening there. The disappearances, headless deaths, and accounts of supernatural phenomena have created a shroud of secrecy over the land. Some adventurers who have visited Nahanni have claimed to feel as though time doesn't follow the usual rules there. There are those who have reported feeling lost in time, unsure of how long they had been in the valley, and upon returning, they realized they had lost hours without even knowing. This has led many to believe that the Nahanni Valley is not just an ordinary wilderness, but a place influenced by supernatural forces or scientific phenomena that are yet to be understood. The Nahanni Valley, with all its mysteries and horrors, continues to terrify and fascinate people. The disappearances, missing heads, and forgotten souls lost in the mountain depths remain haunting stories that no one can explain. Perhaps there will never be an answer to what truly happened here, and perhaps that's why Nahanni will forever remain a timeless enigma. For those brave enough to explore, the price may be their lives, or worse, they could become part of an unsolved mystery, forever lost in the land of headless spirits. The strange disappearances in the missing 411 phenomenon not only confuse and intrigue people, but also open the door for many conspiracy theories to emerge. Numerous individuals have proposed supernatural explanations and even government conspiracy theories, suggesting the involvement of authorities in covering up the truth. However, despite how intriguing these theories may seem, most lack sufficient evidence or practical basis to reasonably explain the disappearances. One of the most popular theories surrounding the missing 411 phenomenon involves the participation of supernatural forces. Supporters of this theory argue that the victims of missing 411 were not lost due to ordinary reasons, but were abducted by invisible forces, which could include aliens, ancient monsters, or even demonic entities. Many believe that the Nahanni Valley is haunted by the spirits of the Naha tribe, which mysteriously vanished in history. These spirits are said to protect the land from human intrusion. Additionally, the space-time displacement theory is often mentioned by those who believe that victims were sucked into mysterious spatial portals and transported to another world. Maps of the disappearances often overlap with cave systems or areas of significant elevation, leading many to believe that these locations contain portals into which the unfortunate individuals wandered. Another popular conspiracy theory is that the government is involved in covering up the disappearances. Supporters of this theory suggest that the government may know exactly what happened to the victims of missing 411, but deliberately hides the truth. Some speculate that secret experiments or projects related to advanced technology and space research may be the reason for these disappearances being kept under wraps. It is thought that the government could be involved in secret scientific activities, using humans as subjects for experiments far beyond the public's understanding. The unexplained disappearances that cannot be solved through conventional investigations may be part of these projects, but they have never been revealed. David Paulides, the man behind the missing 411 phenomenon, has also suggested that the government knows the truth and is purposely withholding information. However, despite the allure of supernatural or government conspiracy theories, it is important to reconsider the facts. Most of the disappearances in the missing 411 phenomenon, when thoroughly investigated, can be explained by natural factors or human error. For example, many disappearances occurred in dense forests or treacherous mountainous regions where weather, terrain, and disorientation could have been the main causes. In some cases, carelessness or lack of proper preparation by the victims contributed to the tragedies. Inexperienced hikers or explorers without adequate equipment or knowledge of the terrain can easily find themselves in danger when weather conditions suddenly change. High mountain terrain, fast-flowing rivers, or even snowstorms have claimed the lives of many and caused them to vanish without a trace. The most important point to remember is that, while conspiracy theories may seem enticing and captivating, they lack scientific or legal foundation. Most of the missing 411 cases do not have clear evidence to support these theories. Supernatural or government involvement hypotheses usually fail to provide convincing proof and rely primarily on speculation or unverified elements. Moreover, David Paulides, who popularized the missing 411 phenomenon while presenting cases with certain commonalities, has had many independent investigators debunk or find simpler explanations for these disappearances. Many cases can be explained by natural causes, victim negligence, or even ordinary criminal activity. After exploring the mysterious details and unexplained disappearances, we come to the final section, where all the pieces are gathered to provide an overall perspective on the missing 411 phenomenon. Although there are clear commonalities between the disappearances, there remains a picture full of gaps and ambiguities. Natural factors, human involvement, and supernatural theories all play a part in this story, yet no explanation completely addresses all the aspects. Throughout the previous sections, we have seen several common features among the cases associated with the missing 411 phenomenon. The victims often disappear in wild areas, with harsh geographical and weather conditions, many cases occurring near bodies of water, in mountainous regions, or areas of significant elevation. Victims tend to be male, sometimes of German or Northern European descent, and belong to one of two extremes in terms of intelligence or health condition. These common traits have raised suspicions that there may be some connection between the disappearances, not isolated events, but potentially part of a larger series of incidents. However, the problem is that while these disappearances share certain similarities, no concrete evidence shows they are truly linked by a single factor. A plausible theory to explain these disappearances may not come from supernatural elements or conspiracy theories, but from human factors and the risks they face when venturing into wild territories. Areas like Winta National Park, Vail in Colorado, or the Nahanni River Valley are known for their rugged terrain and unpredictable natural conditions. The mountains, cliffs, and dense forests are places full of deadly dangers, where a moment of carelessness, disorientation, or encountering bad weather can lead to disaster. Many disappearances could stem from disorientation, getting lost, or accidents where no one was able to react in time. In harsh natural environments, the chances of surviving an accident can be very low, and when victims are unable to find their way out or signal for help, they may become trapped and disappear without anyone knowing. Although conspiracy theories and supernatural explanations surrounding the disappearances often attract attention and add drama, most lack concrete evidence. There is no documented proof of alien involvement, monsters, or space-time displacement, nor is there any credible evidence that the government is intentionally covering up information about these disappearances. David Paulides, who initiated the missing 411 phenomenon, found many commonalities between the cases, but could not provide a definitive explanation for the phenomenon. Paulides himself has admitted that although he believes there are mysterious elements connected to the disappearances there is no concrete proof that they involve supernatural or government conspiracy factors. Many other investigators have debunked these theories, suggesting that nature and human error are the main factors contributing to the disappearances. If there is a true connection between the disappearances, it may lie more in human factors than in supernatural forces. Carelessness, lack of proper preparation, or inexperience in the wilderness could be the common element that has led many victims to meet their tragic fates. Wilderness areas are not only beautiful but also dangerous, and disappearing in such regions is not impossible. Many of the disappearances in the missing 411 phenomenon can be explained by criminal activity or accidents. For example, in remote forests or national parks, not all incidents are closely monitored, and victims may become targets of criminals or get trapped in life-threatening accidents. The final conclusion we can draw from the disappearances in the missing 411 phenomenon is that, while there are commonalities between the cases, there is no fully clear explanation. This leaves an open question for those who follow these disappearances. Is there a real connection between them? Or are they just isolated incidents exaggerated by mystery and lack of information? The strange disappearances in the missing 411 phenomenon continue to be a major mystery in the eyes of the public and investigators alike. To this day, no solution has been found that can satisfactorily address all aspects of these cases. The questions will remain, and there may never be a clear answer to this enigmatic phenomenon.